Hi, and welcome to Celebration Bar Review. We are counting down to the exams, and if I look a little frazzled here, I think I am. We're 12 days away. And wow, what a big time that is, and what an important time it is for most people in their studies. So I empathize with you. And I know that some of you at 12 days are beginning to feel some fear. And I wanted to talk a little bit about fear and fear of flying. Not the Erica Jong kind of fear of flying, but the real fear of flying. For many years, and those of you who are frequent listeners or students in our course know that I reference this occasionally, for many years I absolutely wouldn't get on an airplane, refused to do it. Even though I have a long lineage of airplane people in my family. My grandfather was the first flight surgeon in America. He was one of the founders of an airline. My father flew all sorts of aircraft, helicopters, planes, everything else. And I think it's a control thing. You know, I couldn't fly them, I didn't understand them, and so they scared me. In any event, for many years I just wouldn't get on a plane. I took trains everywhere, and I let that fear really control my life. And then a few years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago now, I was in Florida, and it was in the late fall, and Sarah, my wife, had gone to Dallas to be with her sister, who was imminently really dying from breast cancer, and as it turned out, not very far from actually passing. And every year there was the Susan Komen Race for the Cure in Dallas, and it was followed by a party at my wife's sister and her husband's home. And the party was an opportunity to celebrate life, and it was a very special event, and all of the family and friends came, and it was a big deal. Well, as the habit had been every year for the 5 or 6 years that Terry had been fighting breast cancer, Sarah went back to this event, and our kids flew out from wherever they were at the time to be there as well. Everybody was there except me. And I was back at this point in Central Florida, and absolutely terrified of flying and feeling really bad that I wasn't going to go. Well, I got up on the morning of the race day, which was followed by the formal party, and this was a formal party, by the way. It was a party with tuxedos for the men, and the women got all dressed up. It was a big deal. And I thought, you know, I just can't let this fear continue to control me. And I would say I was spiritual, but not always very trusting. But I sort of got down and said, you know, God, I really don't know that I can do this, but I really feel like I need to be there tonight. And this was back in the days when you actually used travel agents. So I felt like I needed to go that day. So I checked in my closet, and I figured out that I still had a tuxedo, and amazingly enough, it still fit. And I called my travel agent and said, I need to go to Dallas. And she said, when? And I said, today. And she said, okay. And she said, there's one little problem, Jackson. The problem is that there is an imminently approaching hurricane, in case you hadn't noticed, coming here to Florida. Well, if you can imagine being a scared flyer, hearing the words hurricane and flight, not good. But I swallowed hard, and I knew that my fear was getting increasingly great, and I said, it's okay, book the ticket anyway. She said, well, I don't know you're going to get out, but we'll try. So she booked the ticket, and I showed up at the Orlando airport, and because of the only time available and the only flight I could get on, I knew there wouldn't be time to get to Dallas and change clothes and get to this party before it ended. In fact, I wasn't even sure if I was going to get there before the party ended. So I actually put on my tuxedo, and I went to the airport in my tuxedo. And I got to the gate and the screening, and you can imagine what that was like. And got to the plane, and they said, we just don't know if we're going to be able to make it or not. We were going to try and get out before the storm gets too close. Well, my knees were shaking. I was totally terrified. Might feel similar to what some of you are going to experience at the bar. And but nonetheless, I sort of soldiered on and took a deep breath and walked to the plane. And as I was boarding the plane, one of the flight attendants saw the tuxedo, looked around, and said, what's up with this? Getting married? I mean, you know, what, huh? And I said, long story, I've got a very important party to go to. And they said, in Dallas tonight? I said, yeah, gotta get there, and I gotta make it. And, you know, they could see my face was white as a ghost, I think. And they said, well, why don't you just sit up here with us, you know, up front in the nice seats. And, you know, that's cool. We'll be fine. Well, I mean, I was thrilled. And I sat there, and I was white knuckle thinking, we're just not going to make it. And then a really interesting thing happened. there was what is sometimes described as a peace that passes all understanding. A calmness came over me. And I realized that I wasn't in control, and I couldn't be in control, and all I could do was just sit and follow what I'd been told to do. And so we got on the plane, and long story short, the plane took off, and we had an incredibly rough flight, but we made it. And I'm wearing the tuxedo, and when the plane arrives in Dallas, the flight attendant says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a gentleman up front here who needs to get to a very important party tonight, and would you let him get off the plane first?" And she said, "And he's the man that flies in a tuxedo." So I got off the plane, found a cab, took a very long cab ride to a place I'd actually never been before. Got to the front door wearing a tuxedo about 10 p.m., knocked on the door, and one of my other sisters-in-law was at the door, opened it, and you can imagine the look on her face when I showed up. You can also imagine the look on my wife's face and my children's faces when they realized that not only had I flown, but I'd flown through the hurricane in a tuxedo. The point of the story isn't to say what a great guy I am, because it really was something that should never have happened if I hadn't been so afraid of what was out there. I overcame my fears that day. I've flown hundreds of times, literally, since then. Never had a problem, never had a fear again. My point of this story for you today at 12 days is that some of you are facing fears like that. I absolutely understand what you feel like. It feels like the bottom's going to drop out. It feels overwhelming. It feels terrifying. It feels like you can't control it. And that's exactly the point. You can't control it. So what do? You do what you can. You metaphorically put on your tuxedo and you take the next step. You go forward, you do the work you can do today and tomorrow and the next day, and you get yourself ready for the test. You show up at the test wearing your tuxedo so that you know in your mind, I've done all I can do. It's not up to me anymore. Now it's just time to take the test. You know, the great part about showing up in Dallas that night was it was the last time I saw my sister-in-law. She was very weak, but her eyes just brightened because she knew that I had to overcome some huge fears to be there that evening. The point of you taking the bar exam may be just because it's the next step in your career, or maybe it's to get over some long-held hurdles in your life, or maybe it's just the opportunity to try something new. Whatever your reasons, whatever your motivations, you've done something good. You've done something that's challenging and worthwhile. Give it your best. Don't let fear control you. Control the situation. As you study for the next 12 days, go forward with optimism. Go forward with enthusiasm. Go forward with a smile on your face. It makes the trip a whole lot easier. Well, thanks for listening to my story about the trip, and I wish you all wonderful tuxedoed rides as you head to the bar exam. I'll be back in a few days as we continue our countdown series. Thanks.